No sports topic is out of bounds. You found the MN Sports Blitz. Along with former Minnesota Vikings linebacker Chad Greenway, here's Joel Niemeyer.
And good day again, and welcome to another MN Scores Blitz. I'm Joel, that's Chad, and a very good day to you, Chad.
Yeah, good day. Thanks for having me on again.
Nice to have you. Hope you and yours had a good holiday, and it's always fun. I mean, there's a lot of different. There was NFL going on. There was NBA on Christmas. There's a few college football games, I would guess. It's just Christmas has become kind of a nice sports time of the year.
Oh my gosh, it turned out to be just awesome. Especially look at Christmas Day itself, and of course the NFL and COVID. I mean, I feel like we've had a football game almost every day the last 2 weeks, which you don't want it to be those reasons, but you like having football on all the time. Then of course the bowl games are hitting now, so get to go for last night and watch them play and get a dub, and Christmas Day though was excellent. I mean, we end up kind of being a little bit lazy on Christmas Day around here. Santa comes, and my mom was here in town, so we kind of just laid low and just watched sports all day. It was awesome.
You mentioned the COVID issues. Might as well start there because it's every league has kind of been dealing with this. I know the Wolves have been hit really hard with the COVID bug. The NHL paused. There's some NFL things going on, college football bowl games, and I know you never had to deal with anything like this big in your career. But how? I mean, you can speculate, I guess. How tough would it be to try and deal with the constant movement on rosters nowadays?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and the leagues are changing their rules and when they're going to come back. And now you have government entities coming back saying, hey, we can do this now and not that. And it seems like we're starting to get a little bit of a sense of this thing kind of waning and weakening. And you love to see that because you don't want to start to see your games being postponed and canceled the way they have been, especially you see college basketball and especially women's college basketball. Been watching so many games be canceled. I think when you're on that team and you're part of that, it kind of becomes just, what you have to deal with. I think you sort of become immune or kind of accustomed to it. And, it doesn't make it fun, doesn't make it great, but that just kind of becomes the reality of hey, this is something that everybody's dealing with. We're going to deal with it. And, we either make it an advantage or a disadvantage, and how are you going to handle it?
Can and again, it's hard. I'm sure it's hard for you to compare because you haven't had anything like this happen to you, where you had plans change at the last moment. But how would you, if you got an unexpected setback, like, hey, you got to sit at home for 7 days and you can't do anything? How would you deal with that as a player?
Oh, it'd be tough. Oh my gosh, I'd be just at my wit's end. One thing that I had that was similar, like a postponement or moving a game, is in 2010 we had the dome collapse and we ended up moving a game to Detroit. And then we also had a game that was scheduled to play on Sunday and we ended up playing on a Tuesday. So I had those very very different but similar situations. Now you sit around and you sort of anticipate and wait and you just kind of for me, I was always just like a ton of nervous energy. So it was not fun to be around, that's for sure. Always running at a 10, and my wife is telling me to calm down, obviously, and relax. So
let's talk some football here, because the next time you and I chat, the NFL regular season will be in the books, and for the Vikings, it looks like their playoff picture is kind of on life support at this point. They need some wins and a bunch of help right now.
Yeah, they really do. It's unfortunate that it's gotten obviously to this point. You needed that win last week, but you look back at where the season sort of started and how it kind of took shape, and then you realize that it's all those losses, those small, really close games. Those losses they become the biggest issue, right? I mean, you got to make that kick, right? You got to finish that drive. You got to get that stop. I mean, that's just what it comes down to, especially at the end of games. I think the reality is this team has been very consistently inconsistent all year. I was actually at that game with the LA game last week, and I just didn't like the energy in the building, but I also didn't like the energy we were getting from the team. I didn't think that they were playing like their season was on life support. I think that was the one thing I noticed was, are you playing that with your hair on fire, knowing that if we don't win this game, like we're done? And I didn't get that energy. I don't know if the coaches were kind of we're making plays, we're making play calls that way as well. But reality is you got to go out there and play and say, what, this game, it has to be ours. And I just didn't feel that. The lack of pass rush was certainly noticeable. So, at the end of the day, it's on life support. I do see that there's a path. Obviously, you have to go win two pretty tough ball games coming up and to even give yourself a chance.
Is this the last hurrah for Mike Zimmer? I know it's been rumored quite a bit. Axe could fall after the season. Is this it? Because he's been a good coach. I mean, I won't say that. But he's been a very good coach over the years. But it does seem like the run might be coming to an end.
Yeah, I mean, it starts to feel that way a little bit, doesn't it? I don't know if that's the case. I certainly don't wish that upon anybody. I like Mike. I think Mike has done a pretty nice job. I think that he's a great football coach. I do think that he's had, there's obviously been some issues, and there's been some issues with winning football games, and at the end of the day, like, that's what he's here for. He's got to win football games, and I think he's got to win them at a higher rate, and he has just had too many issues that he's dealt with. Now having said that, I'll never advocate for him to lose his job. I want him to be here. I think we win with him.
Now going forward, the Vikings have two games. I'll say both winnable because they already beat the Packers once. Now they got to do it again in Lambeau. Issue here is A, it's at Lambeau, and B, it could be pretty darn cold on Sunday night.
Yeah, it's a game that obviously you have to have. So you got to go out there guns blazing and make the play calls the way you feel fit to go win that football game. Obviously, the Pack know what they have to do to secure their probably home field advantage in the NFC. They have a game that they have to win. So I think this is going to be a massive game. Even if the playoff hopes are waning and there's not much of a chance, going into Green Bay and winning there always is good. So, I like the ability to go in there and get this dub. I still think we have a football team that can go do that. We've proven that Aaron Rodgers, we've proven that we can beat, Rodgers. I think Zim's 500 in his last 18, 19 games, 20 games. So we know that it's possible. So but we just gotta lean on that and go in there and get a win.
You've played in a few pretty darn cold games over the course of your career. Do you, as a player, do you notice the cold, or are you too wrapped up in the football side of it that it's just another game?
Yeah, you notice the cold. I mean, it'd be silly not to say that you don't notice it. I mean, it's definitely part of the environment, especially going to Lambeau and that whole feeling. I think when you're playing, though, it just becomes part of what you're dealing with. So I don't necessarily think that it becomes an X factor one way or the other. I do think that you have to have teams that can handle that, especially quarterbacks or running backs that are handling the ball a lot, receivers, certainly centers. Anybody touching the football, are they able to handle it and able to play their normal game? That becomes the biggest issue and biggest question mark. Now, at the same time, can you go and embrace it? Can you embrace it and say, hey, this is going to become an advantage for us? And I really believe that we have a football team that can go do that, a mentality that can go do that. We need all hands on deck and everybody to be healthy, and that would be a good start.
Speaking of people that touch the football, Justin Jefferson, not quietly, but very slowly becoming one of the best. Maybe he already is one of the top 5 receivers in the league. He's having a really good year.
Yeah, he is. I think you look at his talent level. You look at, obviously we've had Randy Moss here. We've seen what he was able to do in the early part of his career and just become an absolute legend, a Viking legend and Hall of Famer. And you kind of love to lean in to say, hey, Justin can be Randy, right? And I think maybe that's an unfair comparison, but the numbers he's putting up is you kind of say, hey, this is possible. I mean, this kid is good. He's talented. He's got an ego. He's pretty aggressive with it, and he wants to win. And I think that's a guy you want to have here and you want to keep here, and a guy, a piece long term you can build around.
Let's move over to college football for a little bit here, because as we record this, and as we both of us slept last night, probably the Golden Gophers won a college football bowl game out in Arizona against West Virginia, and that you just from reading the story, that defense looked very impressive in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl.
Yes, it did, and they've been pretty good all year. I mean, you look at the offensive line play, defensive line play, and just defense in general. They've had a good football team all year. A couple of trip-ups and slip-ups lead you to that bowl game rather than something bigger. But I think the Gophers look at a 9-win season, you look back around and say, hey, it's a pretty good year, and that's something we can build on. And they have a nice core coming back. Not knowing what's going to happen at quarterback, but knowing that Tanner could be back for a 6th year. I'm not sure how Gopher fans feel about that one way or the other, but the reality is that could happen. So reality is they have a good football team. They have a young football team, and you got to believe that. Haven't looked at the schedule yet for next year, but they have a good chance to have another good season.
Speaking of people who may or may not be back, I know a lot of that offensive line. There's a lot of NFL prospects on that offensive line, and that's a position of need for a lot of NFL teams right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Look at our Vikings, right? I mean, the reality is that every NFL team needs to get better at offensive line. So, those guys, and my cousin Bailey, who played football there for the Gophers for a number of years, he rooms with Sleater and Connor Olson, the center, and he kind of talked about their chances of going pro, and they both have very good chances, and I think that's something that's just amazing to see. Meeting those kids as freshmen. When they're kind of all coming onto campus and seeing the career they've had and the success they've had, and a couple of really, really good years, and now you can look around and say, hey, probably at least three of these guys will be playing in NFL teams next year, which is pretty good to see for the program, and it makes it a lot easier to recruit. That's for sure.
No, you obviously went through that draft process after you came out of Iowa. What is these next few months, this kind of uncertainty time? What is this like? What are these, guys like Sam Schleter and Faalele and others that are going to be entering the NFL draft? What is this time going to be for them?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of uncertainty and just kind of not knowing, right? I think the biggest thing is get through this bowl game. Get through this bowl game. You get healthy. Now you kind of start the next phase. The next phase is to go start to train for whether you're going to the Senior Bowl or some sort of a bowl, an NFL style scouting bowl, right? Like the Senior Bowl or the blue-gray game. These events that they put on because scouts are watching those, and it kind of gives them a taste and a sense of what you can do against these other teams. Then you hopefully get invited to the NFL Combine. You start preparing for that, and if you're a part of the NFL Combine, which my assumption would be is those two guys you mentioned would be hopefully invited to that. Well, now you get an opportunity to go and showcase your skills and kind of be a part of that. And then it's just you have your pro day, which NFL teams will come to up here to Minnesota and watch them closely, run through drills, skills, and put them through a workout. And then basically you just kind of you wait and you see, and you just kind of you get your agent, and you start talking to teams, and get a feel for where you're at, and then hopefully you get to hear your name on draft day.
Then we'll wrap up our chat this week by giving some love to your team. Speaking of defense, I expect a whole lot of defense in against the Iowa Hawkeyes and Kentucky Wildcats. Should be a fun Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, it should be. I'm not sure what kind of offense we're going to get. We've had such an anemic offense all year. It'll be interesting to see what we can come up with down there in the bowl game after having 4 or 5 weeks to prepare. But it's going to be a good football game. Kentucky's a very good team, a lot of improvement. So yeah, looking forward to that game, and hopefully we come out with a win.
Sounds good. Hey, thanks for joining us again, Chad, and we'll chat with you in the new year.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's Chad Greenway and the MN Scores Blitz.
The MN Sports Blitz has been produced by KDUZ, KARP, KGLB, and the Ingstad, Minnesota Radio Network. Complete episodes are available on our website and on YouTube.